You know, Mickey Mouse.
And that his supporting cast should be a duck, a dog, another mouse, and oh yeah, another dog. He dreamed that audiences would actually come to the movie theaters to see feature-length cartoons. He dreamed that animals could star in their own series. He dreamed that he could create an amusement park that would fascinate adults as much as children. Yes, Walt Disney was a man of many dreams, and anyone who has laughed at his cartoons, forgotten their troubles for a day at one of his theme parks, or been touched by one of his motion pictures, is thankful that his dreams came true. It's only fitting that perhaps his greatest and most ambitious project of all would bear his name, for Walt Disney World is truly a dream come true. It's not known exactly when Walt Disney got the idea for a second Magic Kingdom, but even as Disneyland was experiencing unprecedented success, Walt was envisioning plans for a theme resort complete with hotels and recreational facilities that would serve as a total vacation opportunity for the whole family. Disneyland was a hit, but his newest dream would not be another Disneyland, because Walt Disney was a man who simply would not repeat himself. This was a lesson Walt learned from The Three Little Pigs. In his early career, that cartoon had been an unparalleled success, and it was suggested he make more cartoons featuring his newest stars. But when his sequels, The Big Bad Wolf, Three Little Wolves, and The Practical Pig couldn't come close to the sensation caused by the original, Walt had a new saying to live by: you can't top pigs with pigs. But how could he possibly hope to top Disneyland? Within its first 2 years of operation, it was already considered America's biggest tourist attraction. Most men would have rested on their laurels, but Walt was ready to pursue Project X.
He didn't spend a lot of time talking about Disneyland. In fact, he told us in many meetings, he said, look, you guys know how to do a Disneyland. I'm talking about something past Disneyland. And it was very exciting, his concepts, because in my opinion, what Walt was trying to do, he was trying to show how, through the free enterprise system, you could take virgin land and develop it properly and enhance the environment rather than take away from it, and also, frankly, without government subsidy.
At the time when I heard about Project X, I was on sort of the public end of show business in Disney. I was working down at Disneyland as a ride operator while in college, and the way people down at that particular level hear about things is usually through 3 or 4 generations of shaman that are passing on down the information. And in my particular case, we heard about Project X as something in a Florida swamp somewhere, and it was very, very sketchy.
WED Enterprises, an acronym for Walter Elias Disney, would once again be called upon for its creative and technical know-how. WED was a personal organization Walt formed in order to work on his projects outside the film studio. It had turned Disneyland into reality with a group of talented designers, architects, engineers, craftsmen, and technicians collectively known as Imagineers. WED Enterprises, which was recently renamed Walt Disney Imagineering, had learned a great deal during the construction and operation of Disneyland. But a new theme park was only the beginning of Walt's newest dream. He had a much bigger concept in mind that would stretch the creative and technical skills of the Imagineers to their limits.
With Walt, nothing was ever always right. He felt that you could always improve on things. And again, repeating that intangible quality called perfection, and who knows when you reach it, so you keep reaching.
I think he was able to get out of people what they didn't even realize they had to give, or that they had, that the abilities that, he had people perform things that they never knew that they could do before. And once you did them, you felt so good about the accomplishment.
The plan was in motion. A new theme park, bigger than Disneyland, was to be built. But where? As early as 1958, the research began which would determine the best location for a second Magic Kingdom. The result was not surprising to Walt.
Walt wanted a lot of land, and Florida offered a lot of land at a reasonable price. The primary reason you have to look at, though, is either a good local population or a good tourist population. In those days, Florida was doing about 20 million tourists a year. The third thing that we needed was major access. There was a major road, I-4, that was going right through the property, an airport very close, so the transportation systems were very, very good. And weather, a very important factor. It rains in Florida, but year-round the Florida weather is very, very good. So those four factors really made Florida the selection quite quickly.
There were few mistakes made at Disneyland, but one that Walt was ready to admit and unable to correct was the fact that they hadn't bought enough land to protect the area surrounding the park. He felt that it had become too gaudy and crowded with hotels and fast food places that created a carnival-like atmosphere. He knew they must buy enough land to control the environment around the park because it was the reason people were coming there. Walt was determined this time to find an area that he was sure would be large enough to encompass all his dreams. The process of securing the land had begun with a great deal of secrecy to keep the cost from soaring. As the Disney organization secretly bought parcels of land throughout Central Florida, people began to speculate as to the mystery buyer. It was anybody's guess, and they ranged from Douglas, Lockheed, and Boeing to a nuclear power plant, the Hercules Powder Company. Even Howard Hughes and Rockefeller were mentioned, along with the Ford Motor Company, Leisure World, and, of course, Disney.
We set up 5 dummy corporations, and we purchased land keeping the Disney name out of it. In fact, if it hadn't leaked out by an Orlando Sentinel reporter, we probably would have still been buying land.
On November 15, 1965, over 27,000 acres had been purchased, and it was time to formally announce to the press Walt's dream.
It's been a wonderful reception that you've given us here. All the faces seem friendly, and we feel very much at home. And it's just a big, exciting project for us, too, you know. And in fact, it's the biggest thing we've ever tackled.
As he had done with Disneyland, Walt was soon ready to share his plans for the Florida Disney project with the world, this time on TV.
Walt used television as a vehicle to talk about his Disneyland, his park, and those shows in those days were very, very popular and very successful. And anytime we do a special day on Walt Disney World or Disneyland, they're still very popular with the American public.
The sketches and plans you will see today are simply a starting point. Our first overall thinking about Disney World. Everything in this room may change time and time again as we move ahead. But the basic philosophy of what we're planning for Disney World is going to remain very much as it is right now. We know what our goals are. We know what we hope to accomplish. And believe me, it's the most exciting and challenging assignment we've ever tackled at Walt Disney Productions. We're now developing a master plan that encompasses the theme park and all the facilities around it that will serve the tourists. Hotels, motels, and a variety of recreation activities. Here in Florida, we have something special we never enjoyed at Disneyland, the blessing of size. There's enough land here to hold all the ideas and plans we could possibly imagine. By far the most important part of our Florida project, in fact, the heart of everything we'll be doing in Disney World, will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it EPCOT, spelled E-P-C-O-T, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Here it is in larger scale. EPCOT will take its cue from the new ideas and new technologies that are now emerging from the creative centers of American industry. It will be a community of tomorrow that will never be completed, but will always be introducing and testing and demonstrating new materials and new systems. And EPCOT will always be a showcase to the world for the ingenuity and imagination of American free enterprise.
The initial plan for Disney's development in Florida called for 2 theme parks. The first was a new and expanded version of Disneyland to be called the Magic Kingdom. But the second was the one that fascinated Walt. It was where he would concentrate his energy and creativity. It would become EPCOT, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow.
He knew that whatever he did, the best thing that he could do was to create an example. And if he could do exactly what Epcot said it was going to be, an experimental prototype community, and community was a carefully chosen word rather than city, community of tomorrow, that he could set an example so high that people would respond to it, they could sit in it, they could touch it, they could ride in its transportation vehicles, they could live in it. They could then carry that message and those exciting ideas back to their own communities.
Walt was soon engrossed with Epcot and wanted to be sure it included every possible scientific advance of the future.
So that's what Epcot is, an experimental prototype community that will always be in a state of becoming. It will never cease to be a living blueprint of the future, where people actually live a life they can't find anywhere else in the world.
On December 15th, 1966, the world was stunned to learn that Walter Elias Disney, the man who had turned so many dreams into reality, was dead.
This is Beach Rogers in the KFWB newsroom. We have a bulletin from Burbank, which is going to sadden the entire world. Walt Disney, the man who built an entertainment empire on a cartoon character, has died today at the age of 65. Of course, he was the creator of Mickey Mouse, the beloved cartoon characters, and Disneyland. Walt Disney, dead at the age of 65 this morning.
Shortly after Walt's death, his older brother Roy released this message to the press. As president and chairman of the board of Walt Disney Productions, I want to assure the public, our stockholders, and each of our more than 4,000 employees that we will continue to operate Walt Disney's company in the way that he has established and guided it. Walt Disney spent his entire life and almost every waking hour in the creative planning of motion pictures, Disneyland, television shows, and all the other diversified activities that have carried his name through the years. Around him, Walt Disney gathered the kind of creative people who understood his way of communicating with the public through entertainment. Walt's ways were always unique, and he built a unique organization, a team of creative people that he was justifiably proud of.
Well, I think by this time, my staff, my young group of executives are convinced that Walt is right, that quality will out. So I think they're going to stay with that policy because it's proven that it's a good business policy. Give the public everything you can give them. Keep the place as clean as you can keep it. Keep it friendly. You know, make it a real fun place to be. I think they're convinced, and I think that'll hang on after, as you say, after Disney.
And once again, Walt was right. His brother took over the Disney World project as it had been known up to the time of Walt's death, and one of his first acts was to officially rename the project Walt Disney World. So, as Roy put it, people will always know that this is Walt's dream.
When Walt died, there was a great concern in the part of our company because Roy Disney was actually retiring at that time. And God bless him, he climbed back in the saddle and he asked of some of the executives, what do you guys think? Can we do it without Walt? I think we all said the same thing. We don't know, but we ought to try. Roy Disney then started sitting in creative meetings and put his boots on and was on walkthroughs, and he rode helicopters looking at the property, and his role changed dramatically, and he became the leader that gave us confidence that we could do it. And he worked very hard because more than anything, Roy wanted to bring into reality the first phase of what his brother had in mind.
The construction of Walt Disney World was an enormous task. At its peak in 1970, it represented the largest private construction project in the United States.
The first time that most of us had really seen the Walt Disney World property was in the fall of 1967, and at that time, the only thing that had been done, or there were two things that had been done on the land. One was to begin a tree farm where we were testing certain varieties of trees to see whether they could be grown in that kind of soil and climate. And the second was a clearing of about 100 acres where the Magic Kingdom was. In fact, we put a big white mark in the middle with an X in the middle of it. And that was the center where the castle was going to go in the Magic Kingdom. And if you stood at that spot and looked around you, there was nothing. And so it was very difficult to say that 1 mile over in that direction we were going to put the Contemporary Resort Hotel, and another half-mile in this direction is where the Polynesian Village was going to go, and the parking area would go 2 miles that way. So what we determined to do was to do a stakeout, and the stakeout was done primarily with large balloons so that you could stand at various places on the project and be able to see where those developments were going to go.
During the first phase of the construction of Walt Disney World, over 8 million cubic yards of earth were moved. That's enough to fill the Empire State Building more than 5 times. More than 8,000 workers representing every kind of building skill worked on the Magic Kingdom. In the words of Walt Disney, you can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality. On October 1st, 1971, the grandest of all of Walt Disney's dreams became a reality.
Walt Disney World is a tribute to the philosophy and the life of Walter Elias Disney, and to the talents, the dedication, and the loyalty of the entire Disney organization that made Walt Disney's dream come true.
Roy Disney picked up the ball and dedicated himself to making Walt Disney's dream of Walt Disney World a reality, and Roy Disney was a tremendous support and driving force to really carry out his brother's great dream.
Our entire company, to a person, directed their energies in one direction, and that was to get Walt Disney World open. It was a tough opening, but we made it, and I think that's the great thing about our company. When we turn our energies in one direction, there isn't anything that we can't do.
We all remember seeing years ago those slick, futuristic drawings saying what the future of the American city was going to be. Gleaming buildings, fast monorails, people in one place, cars in another. Well, this is the future, and none of it has happened. Nobody has done it but Disney. It is the most imaginative and most effective piece of urban planning in America. On this, they have built roads, transportation systems, lakes, golf courses, campgrounds, riding stables, stores, hotels, and so on. And they all fit together in a setting of land, air, and water better than any other urban environment in America.
Although Walt Disney never lived to see Walt Disney World, there's little doubt that it fulfills his dream of providing a complete vacation destination for the entire family. When you enter the Magic Kingdom, 6 unique lands await you: Main Street USA, Fantasyland, Frontierland, Adventureland, Liberty Square, and Tomorrowland. A very defined philosophy was applied to the planning of Walt Disney World. Walt didn't want the guests to see the world they live in while they're in the park. He wanted them to feel they're in another world. Great attention has been given to colors and architecture to ensure that there is a smooth blending from one area to another. Just inside the gates of the Magic Kingdom, guests are first taken back to the good old days as they stroll down Main Street USA, designed as a small American town around the 1900s. Its quaint buildings have been built at about 7/8 scale at street level and smaller at the higher stories. This bit of Disney Imagineering creates a much more intimate setting. And if one chooses to walk rather than ride in one of the horse-drawn trolleys or vintage horseless carriages, they'll find their legs won't get quite so tired because of a special resilient asphalt used to pave the walks. Located along Main Street are many shops, a railroad station, a firehouse, a penny arcade, and at the Main Street Cinema, one of Walt's old friends can be seen in his first sound cartoon. What most guests don't realize as they enjoy their day in the Magic Kingdom is that hidden just a few feet below them is another world. That world is part of an area known as backstage. Walt insisted the theme park be treated as if it were a show. Guests were the audience, and employees were members of the cast. They were either on stage in view of the audience, such as the ride operators and concessionaires, or backstage out of view of the guests. The backstage area beneath the Magic Kingdom enables cast members to keep the show above moving smoothly. Innovatively designed with a series of crisscrossing corridors called utilidors that cover nearly 9 acres, this urban basement allows maintenance trucks, supplies, and cast members to move freely from one section of the park to another without disturbing the guests. Makeup rooms, dressing rooms, design and decorating facilities are just some of the departments found here. The wardrobe department is one of the most extensive, providing costumes for the largest show anywhere, a cast of nearly 20,000.
We have a very important function that goes on in our wardrobe departments every day, and that's issuing clean costumes to all our employees and making sure that they fit right and that they're clean and pressed and neat and that they are up to work on time. So we have a very timely job to do also. The costumed employees at Walt Disney World do not take their costumes home with them. We maintain everything on property. We do their laundry for them. Every day we give them a clean costume. We provide lockers for them where they can lock their own personal clothes up. when they're working in their costume. We repair their costumes. That's what's going on right here. The buttons are being sewn back on. The zippers that don't work anymore are being replaced. The hems that are falling out are being repaired for them. So it's a total service for the employee as far as costume maintenance, repair, and laundry is concerned. Even though we're not here to set fashion trends or anything like that, Minnie Mouse definitely has a new look this year. This is the year of Minnie, totally Minnie. We want her more updated and competing in the marketplace almost with the other females that are out there also.
Walt Disney dedicated Fantasyland to the young at heart, to those who believe that when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Cinderella's castle is the landmark entrance to Fantasyland. Its foyer walls contain 5 mosaic panels illustrating scenes from this classic fairy tale. Just inside the castle courtyard sits a graceful bronze statue of Cinderella. Once you pass through the castle, you've entered what Walt called a timeless land of entertainment. Inspired by Disney's classic animated films, Fantasyland is for young and old. Adventure, romance, and mystery. That's how Walt described Adventureland. Tropical rivers that silently flowed in the unknown. Exotic animals and the eerie sound of the jungle. Disney Imagineers artfully blended trees, bushes, and flowers to create a little bit of paradise. One tree not of nature, but of steel and concrete, is the Swiss Family Treehouse, inspired by the 1960 Disney film. Standing 90 feet tall, its concrete roots go 42 feet into the soil, and its 600 branches are covered with 800,000 vinyl leaves. Like its forerunner at Disneyland, the Pirates of the Caribbean at Walt Disney World is a very popular Adventureland attraction that features a fun-loving band of buccaneers. And for the armchair explorer, the Jungle Cruise, another Disneyland and Walt Disney World favorite, sends you down a tropical river, past hippos, lions, and fearsome headhunters.
I'll tell you, this is the kind of guy Walt was. When I was a young man in charge of Frontierland and Adventureland, he got on the boat and he got a 4.5-minute trip. And he got off and he said, "How long was that trip supposed to be, Dick?" And I said, 7 minutes, sir. He says, "Well, I got a 4.5-minute trip. How would you feel if you went to the movies and he cut the center reel out of the picture?" He said, "I went through that hippo pool so fast I couldn't tell whether they were rhinos or hippos." So he said, you know, we've got to make sure the show's always right, particularly regardless of whether there's a long wait or not. He gave me 3 weeks to shape it up, and he came back in 3 weeks. And he went on the first boat, the second boat, the third boat. We only had 7 in those days, and he went on all 7 of them. Got off the boat and said, "Thumbs up."
Frontierland was Walt's tribute to the faith, courage, and ingenuity of the pioneers who blazed the trails across America. Recreated like the old weathered western towns of the 1800s, Frontierland is built along the Rivers of America waterway. Whether the boat is a Mississippi sternwheeler, a keel boat, or a log raft, passengers get a first-hand glimpse at Tom Sawyer Island, an Indian village, and reaching 197 feet into the air, the highest mountain in Florida, Big Thunder Mountain. Its runaway mine trains offer the wildest ride in the wilderness. At Grizzly Hall, mechanical musicians serenade guests in a hand-clapping production called the Country Bear Jamboree. No less than 17 bears, a raccoon, and talking buffalo, stag and moose heads put on a show that's a tribute to Disney Imagineering and the process they created called audio animatronics.
The Bear Band will play now in the good old key of G. Zeke and Zeb and Ted and Fred and a bear named Tennessee.
The first audio animatronic figures made their debut in 1963 at Disneyland's Enchanted Tiki Room. As the name implies, audio animatronics combines sound, animation, and electronics in a technique Walt described as another dimension of animation.
Well, it's a sort of another door that's opened for us. You see, our whole 40-some-odd years here has been in the world of making things move, inanimate things move. From a drawing, through all kinds of any little props and things, to the use of electronics. It's a tape mechanism that the tape, it's like a programming or sequencing when they do a missile, when they're sending some missile to the moon, say. At different stages, at different times, things must happen. That's all programmed, predetermined. So our show is put on that tape, and it's programmed from this tape. And we run it off a little 1-inch tape that has 14 tracks. And on each track, we can get up to 16 signals. Now, those little signals go and impulse this figure and make the figure move, make the figure talk. Now, these are not working from tape. These are manually controlled. This little gizmo here, kind of like a joystick on the old type airplanes, is what gives us a chance to program the bird. And as we work this and get all the little movements that we want in the bird out, we record it on the tape. And then from then on, the tape will do everything that we've done here.
Having mastered the movements of animals, Walt was convinced that audio animatronics could be successfully used with human figures. For the 1964 World's Fair in New York, he proposed an attraction called the Hall of Presidents, which would recreate moving and talking life-sized figures of all the United States chief executives. However, this project was too ambitious to be built in time for the fair, so Walt built Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, which became a huge success and found a permanent home at Disneyland after the fair. But the Hall of Presidents is another example of one of Walt's dreams that came true in Walt Disney World. Its steeple dominates the skyline in Liberty Square, where the spirit of 1776 has been reborn. Inside, you'll be introduced to the 40 presidents of the United States, gathered on one stage in a stirring spectacle of Americana and American ingenuity. And just around the corner from the Hall of Presidents, the Disney Imagineers have created a poltergeist paradise known as the Haunted Mansion. It's a happy haunting ground. Just as Frontierland and Liberty Square take a nostalgic look at our past, Tomorrowland takes a bold look into the future. The Disney Imagineers have created an environment that allows technology to take over. Racing through the cosmos in Space Mountain, soaring in a star jet on a high-speed adventure, taking a lap in a Grand Prix racer, or even a trip to Mars. That's a visit to Tomorrowland and a world of innovation, such as the revolutionary Wedway People Mover, state-of-the-art transportation using pollution-free electricity. And if Tomorrowland whets the appetite for the future, it's only a short ride away on still another Disney innovation, the Mark IV monorail, which whisks you to 500 acres of the most imaginative and exciting man-made attractions in the world, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. In October of 1982, the most ambitious phase of Walt's dream was opened for all to see and enjoy. And whether arriving by monorail or automobile, there's tremendous anticipation at the first sight of the world's largest geosphere. It foretells a very special place, 180 feet in diameter and rising more than 18 stories above the ground. Spaceship Earth, the symbol of Epcot Center. Its unique construction enables it to be stable without the use of any internal supports. Its outer skin of aluminum brilliantly reflects the afternoon sun. And at sundown, it's even more enticing as it takes on the enchantment of an expensive jewel, reflecting Epcot Center at night. But Spaceship Earth is more than just a symbol. It's an important part of Future World, the showplace for new ideas and new technologies. Spaceship Earth tells the history of communications as guests spiral up the geosphere, following a storyline conceived by science fiction author Ray Bradbury. From cave painting to the dawn of recorded time, through the Renaissance, the invention of the printing press and the telephone, to the vast electronic network that now surrounds our planet. But Spaceship Earth is just the beginning. Future World has a total of 8 different and fascinating exhibits designed to entertain, inform, and inspire. Communicore, short for Community Core, is appropriately the hub of Future World. Information, entertainment, and science are offered through a variety of displays, exhibits, and hands-on experiences. It's an inviting group of interactive exhibits designed to take the mystery, but not the thrill, out of technology. Here are just a few examples of what can be found at Communicore East. The Energy Exchange helps us to understand the complex world of energy. Smart One is a talking robot.
Greetings, Earthling.
In the Electronic Forum, you can receive news from all over the world from sophisticated satellite dishes. Or how about choosing the component parts and designing your own computerized roller coaster? Then if you're daring enough, you can take a ride on your own creation. At Communicore West, FutureCom shows us the complexities of our present telephone communications network. And Epcot Outreach enables any visitor at Epcot Center to obtain information on any subject that is presented in either Future World or World Showcase. Universe of Energy is appropriately named as it generates nearly 15% of the power necessary to run itself. Its roof is covered with 2 acres of solar cells, which convert sunlight directly into electrical energy. Inside, large theater cars designed to carry up to 97 guests glide past dioramas which help to illustrate the formation of fossil fuels. And large format motion pictures with their screens stretching 220 degrees around the audience, showing possible new energy sources for the future. Horizons is housed in a building resembling a gigantic gem. Designed to show us tomorrow's world, Horizon's first stop is to look back at what our ancestors thought tomorrow would be like. Jules Verne's moon rocket design was complete with Egg Maker. And the modern home would include a housekeeping robot that would free us to devote more time to space-age grooming. As for today's future, you'll travel into a 21st century undersea habitat, or look into a desert community with genetically engineered crops. Or the future home of a space colony may be a rotating sphere that simulates gravity. Some of the future's innovations for a better life can be seen at Horizons. The sleek cylindrical neighbor of Horizons is the World of Motion, an attraction that traces the development of transportation from man's first form of mobility, foot power, up to present and possible future methods. Presenting the largest audio animatronic show ever produced by Disney, World of Motion captures the essence of transportation history. The exhibits in the Trans Center complete the World of Motion experience. Aerotest demonstrates flow patterns and their effect on fuel economy and automotive design. And you'll witness the trials of modern transportation, as well as the pros and cons of internal combustion engines. Concept 2000 takes a look at the most advanced automobile design procedures. Dreamer's Workshop shows us sleek prototype cars of the future.
Let's listen to the land.
The Land is the largest of the Future World pavilions, encompassing nearly 6 acres. Its story comes closest to the philosophy, purpose, and image of Walt Disney's Epcot. In Listen to the Land, you'll embark on a boat trip that takes you through a rainforest where harvesting food is the challenge.
When springtime comes, how can
Then the desert, where availability of water is a problem, and onto the plains, where farming means coping with hot summers and cold winters. The Tomorrow's Harvest Tour is a guided tour of the land's growing areas, and guests are encouraged to ask questions that may be helpful in managing their own gardens. Innovations in farming, such as a zero-gravity lettuce drum that may be important for raising food in outer space, and such growing strategies as hydroponics and aquaculture are also featured. At the Kitchen Cabaret, audio animatronics figures perform a cabaret-type show that tells us about the benefits of good nutrition. The Land Pavilion is a testament to utilizing nature's resources efficiently to meet our food needs in the future. Although each of the pavilions at Future World presented a unique set of problems for the Disney Imagineers, the journey into imagination was a special challenge.
It's probably the most amorphous subject you could possibly ever deal with. And to dabble with that kind of esoteria and try to put a parameter around it was almost impossible. We developed many different storylines, many different experiences on our storyboards here at Walt Disney Imagineering. And finally we said, well, look, you can define imagination any way you want to. You can go in any direction you want to go. But ultimately, since we have a pavilion to design, we have to pick a direction and say, here's how we're going to define imagination, and then create an experience around that. Otherwise, we'd still be sitting here today pontificating about the world of imagination.
No one really understands the process of imagination, but the journey into imagination uses the Disney tools of magic, fantasy, and enchantment to demonstrate that by unlocking our imagination and using the elements that surround us, we can find solutions to the problems and challenges of tomorrow. As you enter the journey, you are first introduced to Dream Finder, the mature side of imagination, and Figment, a popular little dragon who represents the impatient, questioning side usually associated with childhood. Together, they'll take you on an exploration of everyday elements that, when touched by imagination, combine into weird and wonderful things. There's much to imagine in the image works as well. Stepping tones, bubble music, pin screens, giant kaleidoscopes and magic palettes that let you apply color with an electronic stylus. There's even a television theater that lets you get into the act. Then, step into the world of Captain EO and experience one of the hottest 3D films ever made. The Walt Disney Company joined forces with George Lucas, Francis Coppola, and the music and creative talents of superstar Michael Jackson. The special effects on screen are combined with spectacular laser and pyrotechnic effects in the theater to create a new dimension in motion pictures. And just outside the pavilion, you'll see another remarkable bit of Imagineering, the leapfrog fountain that squirts water from planter to planter. And from a leaping water fountain, it's off to the pounding surf of the living seas. This is one of Future World's most ambitious attractions. Its 5.6 million gallon tank contains more than 2,000 specimens of ocean life. From the tiny damselfish to the 300-pound tiger shark, a wide variety of fish is found in the living seas. Divers are a common sight as they perform ongoing experiments with the plant and animal life found in this living laboratory. Visitors begin their underwater excursion of the living seas by descending 4 fathoms to the ocean floor in an undersea elevator called a hydrolator. At Seabase Alpha, the prototype undersea research center, there are displays and demonstrations that examine 21st century undersea technology. You'll meet Jason, a prototype of the submersible remote control robot that takes television pictures of the ocean floor and gathers marine samples for use by scientists around the world.
Jason, that's who I be.
The Living Seas has created a real ocean world in its tanks by duplicating the chemistry and life support systems found in the ocean. Its sophisticated filtering system provides the inhabitants with an environment that has them thriving. The Coral Reef restaurant has been designed to give diners one of the most entertaining and peaceful settings you'll ever experience. Future World. It brings together the technical know-how of American industry and the creative imagination of the Disney organization, just as Walt Disney dreamed. Future World has often been called an experimental prototype community of ideas. And just across the lagoon from Future World lies World Showcase, an experimental prototype community of nations. World Showcase brings us the sights, sounds, and of course foods of many of the world's great countries. You can visit a pyramid in Mexico, feast on fettuccine in Rome, see Doge's Palace in Venice, or have your picture taken in front of the Torii Gates of Japan, all within a comfortable stroll of one another. The famous landmarks of each of the countries have been duplicated with amazing attention to detail. Many, such as the Eiffel Tower, have been scaled down for World Showcase from their original blueprints. The host pavilion and centerpiece of World Showcase is the American Adventure. This colonial-style structure houses 35 of the most lifelike audio animatronics figures performing in front of the world's largest rear projection screen.
Sometimes the film was matched up with an audio animatronics figure, like in the American Adventure, which is one of the assignments that I had, was to develop a compression of American history down to a less than 30-minute show, which was certainly a challenge at its best. And also selecting the events that would go into that show was, and today continues to be a challenge in terms of trying to explain to some people why we picked certain events to make known in the American Adventure.
In the American Adventure, you'll witness the events that shaped America. In Mexico, you'll take a boat cruise through its ancient past and onto colonial and modern times. The songs, dances, and of course food are all authentically Mexican. Once you pass through the ceremonial gate to the China Pavilion, you'll feel certain you've entered the ancient city itself. Beijing's Temple of Heaven is the focal point of the showcase, and inside is a theater showing a film on China in Circle Vision 360. Outside, you'll gain an appreciation of the country, its people, its customs, its art, and its culture. As with all the pavilions, the artisans and craftsmen are natives of the country they represent. At the Germany Pavilion, you'll hear the glockenspiel chime each hour in this charming fairy tale-like village. Rustic storefronts, cobblestone streets, and gingerbread-style shops create an enchanting German atmosphere. In the Italy Pavilion, you'll be transported to the world-famous canals of Venice, where the waterways are guarded by the heroic figure of Neptune, crafted in the style of the master sculptor Bernini. Your passport will also take you to a typical market square, where you'll enjoy the sights and sounds, and of course the smells of traditional Italian cuisine. Come, mange. In Japan, good luck will follow through the time-honored Torii Gate to an ancient Buddhist shrine. Walk this oasis of serenity where the path leads to an array of elegant Japanese shops. Dining at the Japan Pavilion is not only a delicious but entertaining experience. In the Morocco Pavilion, there is an intriguing blend of age-old customs and modern innovations. Like most Moroccan cities, the Morocco Pavilion is divided into two sections, the old and new. The beautiful mosaic art found in the architecture was done by 19 Moroccan artists brought from their homeland. Mansard roofs, elegant shops, and tree-lined boulevards, sidewalk cafes are all part of the charm and romance of the France Pavilion. At the Palais du Cinéma, a tour of the French countryside is set to classic French music in the film Impression de France. You'll feel the enchantment of the old world as you experience the architectural styles that represent 400 years of British history in the United Kingdom Pavilion. And what could be more a part of that history than a typical Victorian-style English pub? The Canada Pavilion celebrates its country's diversity in its blending of French Gothic and primitive native structures. The collective wonders of Canada include a cascading waterfall, a turn-of-the-century mining town, and a soaring eagle's view in Circle Vision 360, which captures the majesty that is Canada. The World Showcase. Everywhere you turn, there's a new and exciting experience. 10 countries standing side by side in a bond created by their uniqueness, beauty, and charm. Epcot Center, the showplace for new ideas and new technologies.
It will be a community of tomorrow that will never be completed, but will always be introducing and testing and demonstrating new materials and new systems.
In keeping with Walt's philosophy, special legislation was passed by the state of Florida in 1967. The Epcot Building Code, administered by the Reedy Creek Improvement District, has allowed innovative building materials and systems to be used at Walt Disney World since its very inception. Here are some examples. A modern automated central energy plant controls the flow of power, heating, cooling, and other energy sources. One of Walt Disney World's office buildings has been equipped with an experimental solar power collector system that enables it to supply its own heating and air conditioning power. Walt Disney World was the first facility in the United States to install the Swedish AVAC trash disposal system. Trash is deposited in centrally located receptacles and is transported at speeds up to 60 miles per hour through underground pneumatic tubes to a central collection station. In addition to being colorful, the pesky water hyacinth is proving to be a successful wastewater purifier. This prototype program is also experimenting with the byproduct of the purification process as a source of energy and an agricultural soil conditioner. Conservation has long been an objective in the planning of Walt Disney World. The master plan has been to provide a practical balance between recreational, residential, and commercial uses of the 43 square mile site. The natural beauty of the land is being preserved and quite often enhanced while still offering permanent protection to those areas valuable to wildlife. To this end, 7,500 acres of Walt Disney World have been set aside as a conservation refuge for rare plants and animals. The problem of insect control has initiated some innovative methods which utilize an absolute minimum of pesticides. The ultimate goal of the program will be to eliminate chemical treatment and enlist the aid of natural enemies and parasites to control the insect population. Because large portions of Walt Disney World are made up of water and wetlands, the flow and quality of the water is paramount. A step-down system of water control structures has been set up to control its distribution throughout the property. Walt Disney World Central Foods Plant systematically distributes partially prepared menus to every restaurant on the property. Every day, thousands of guests enjoy quality food prepared by Walt Disney World chefs using the latest technology in volume cooking and packaging. Computers are used as a 24-hour monitoring system for fire safety, as well as utility and maintenance purposes. And with a system called DAX, or Digital Animation Control System, the park's hundreds of audio animatronics figures perform on cue during their many shows. And when it comes to the efficient movement of people, the innovative monorail trains have long proven their success, as well as a Disney-designed and engineered electric linear induction motor which propels the Wedway People Mover. People, whether they're moving or not, are a great concern of Walt Disney World, from its guests to its employees. In Search of Excellence, the bestseller that claimed to offer lessons from America's best-run companies, stated, "One of the best examples of service through people is Walt Disney Productions."
We feel that it's critical to our success to treat the employees as we want them to treat the guests. We have a very simple formula that we use, and it works, and we've proven that it works and that it doesn't work if we're out of balance. If you have a quality employee experience, or cast member experience as we say in our lingo, and a quality guest experience, the financial results will be there. You cannot expect the employees to treat the guests properly if we don't treat them properly.
And if there was such a thing as prototype entertainment, there's a certainty it would be found at Walt Disney World. As if the Magic Kingdom and Epcot Center weren't enough to keep even the most energetic vacationer entertained for days, the surrounding area, called the Vacation Kingdom, provides another entertainment world, offering a wide variety of leisure activities at its lakes, islands, canals, shopping areas, hotels, and golf courses. 3 golf courses are available, 2 of them championship caliber, and 1 designed for players with a mid-handicap. All 3 are used for the annual Walt Disney World Classic. No matter what your level of play, you may wish to attend the golf studio, where your swing is videotaped and analyzed by one of the club pros. The Wee Links is a 6-hole course designed especially for the young beginner. It's an experimental course that uses a special low-maintenance artificial turf on the greens called mud sod. Discovery Island was a scruffy patch of green until the Disney Imagineers transformed it into a tropical haven for rare and endangered species from all over the world. Over 500 creatures make their home here and are given many opportunities to roam free. Discovery Island's conservation efforts were officially recognized in 1981, when this island was made an accredited zoological park by the American Association of Zoological Parks and Aquariums. You can rough it on the nearly 650-acre Fort Wilderness campground, where you'll find canoeing, horseback riding, hiking, and bicycling. There's also a petting farm with pygmy goats and other friendly animals. And in river country, you can visit the old swimming hole, featuring plunges, slides, falls, and rapids.
I think the one thing that we've never been short of in this company is dreams. And as long as there's an imagination in the world, as Walt said once, will never be completed.
The never-ending task of maintaining, upgrading, and revolutionizing Walt Disney World continues to keep the Disney Imagineers very busy. But how do they keep topping themselves?
So we're constantly challenging our designers to stay on the leading edge, and by all means, if you want to break all the rules in developing your concept, break the rules. Because the only person that has a breakthrough in any kind of entertainment medium is the one who breaks the rule to do it. So that's a way we try to free up our Imagineers to work when they're trying to create new attractions. And that's how we're getting a leading edge thing that I'm very confident is going to keep us ahead in the future.
And the future for Walt Disney World looks very bright, with several fine projects that will soon leap from the drawing boards to reality. First, a little Hollywood is coming to Florida with the Disney MGM Studio Tour.
This project will be the third theme park at Walt Disney World. It covers about 110 acres, and it really is two projects in one. There's a theme park, which is this area here, which is all about Hollywood and all about the movies. And then there'll be a working Walt Disney Pictures studio, which will be built in Florida as well. The theme park, we're drawing on Hollywood in its heyday in the 1940s. We're using the glamour of Hollywood and Hollywood's history as the basis for the shows, for the architecture, and all of the theming and live entertainment that will be part of the theme park. And then in the studio, you'll really be seeing the reality of Hollywood. And we have an advantage now in that this is the first time that a studio's been built from the very beginning with the intent of having a tour. So all of the facilities are designed so the guests will have the ability to walk through just about every aspect of film production. This model, which is laid out in front of me, is an 8th scale working tool for us. We've used it to help us develop the overall plan of the project and also in developing the architectural styling for each one of the individual buildings. The large building, which is directly in front of me, which has the Chinese Theater as its main entrance, is the Great Moments at the Movies attraction. For the architectural styling of most of the buildings, we've taken bits and pieces of what we think are the best aspects of Hollywood in its heyday. The architectural styles, the type of restaurants, the type of soundstage architecture, and this model is a way to test out those concepts and see how they look in relation to each other.
The largest and most likely the star attraction of the Disney MGM Studio Tour is a nostalgic look at filmdom called Great Moments at the Movies, located in the Chinese Theater.
In designing Great Moments at the Movies, we started out with storyboards, which is developing the show basically the way they do a regular motion picture. From storyboards, we moved into renderings that describe in more detail and color how the scenes will be set up and play out. And as we do in all of our attractions, we're developing this into a 1/4-inch rough study model where we can figure out spatial relationships, locations of set pieces, and how all of the scenes will be laid out. In this attraction, one thing that's really special is we're combining live actors and audio animatronic figures for the first time, and I think that our guests will be in for some real surprises.
And just a few steps from the surprises found in Great Moments at the Movies is an attraction based on the history of television called the Video Theater. Here, guests may go from onlookers to participants, and with a bit of television trickery, they'll get to act in a famous television program. And as an added incentive, they'll get to keep a cassette of their performance to show all the folks back home. The nighttime environment at Walt Disney World is soon to become much brighter as Pleasure Island begins to take shape.
We want to give the 23 million or so people that come through here a year, plus the people who live in Orlando or come to conventions in Orlando, a place to go once the sun goes down in a nice Disney way.
In this scale model, you can see the popular Empress Lily Sternwheeler is being incorporated into this newest Disney creation, which will make the Walt Disney World Village more entertaining than ever.
Pleasure Island is a mixed-use development on about 5 acres that was designed to combine nightclubs and festival retail facilities and a variety of fine and express dining facilities into a waterfront wharf warehouse district which has a fictional history.
It will look old when it opens from the outside, old in the Disney style, very well done. And then on the inside of all the spaces, the lounges, the shops, the restaurants, it'll come alive with whatever type of experience may be in that building, anything from comedy to the top 40 rock and roll and video type entertainment available today.
Pleasure Island involves a lot of live entertainment, and a great proportion of the live entertainment of Pleasure Island is provided by the people who go there themselves. So Pleasure Island is a mythological performance. It's a nighttime adventure that Mom and Dad and the kids can explore, and I think it's going to be a terrific place.
At the World Showcase, the skyline is about to change once again as construction has begun on Norway, the newest showcase pavilion.
Norway is a nation devoted to peace, and its dimensions in business, in trade, in shipping, and in industry are among the reasons why Norwegians enjoy one of the highest standards of living on this earth.
Walt Disney Imagineers have been designing the new pavilion for some time now, carefully attending to the minutest details.
This is a design for the ride vehicle. Again, this is based on a composite of information about ships of the Viking era. We were considering using a prow ornament such as this one, which is based on several references from the Osberg find, the Viking ship museum outside Oslo. Neither of these, however, is actually a Viking ship prow ornament. They come off of ceremonial sledges. In the end, we decided that it was better to use this reference, which is the only Viking ship prow ornament that really does survive. This is from the British Museum. That's where it can be found.
The Norway Pavilion features a fantasy voyage to the legendary land of the Midnight Sun, where guests will see a 10th century Viking village and a mythical Norwegian forest filled with trolls. A variety of Norwegian architectural styles, authentic Norwegian cooking, and native handicrafts will all be featured when the Norway Pavilion opens at Epcot Center's World Showcase. Well, that's Walt Disney World, a very special place. Inside its gates, you'll feel the happiness of days gone by while sensing the promise of the future. It was conceived by a very special man, Walt Disney, who taught us that our imagination is limitless and our dreams can come true.
The following presentation is closed caption for the hearing impaired.